Okay. There we go, we're recording. Okay, welcome everybody to the Digital Forms webinar. In today's webinar, I am going to be showing you how easy it is to actually create a template in Digital Forms, and also how you can then sync your template to a Word doc so that you can produce a PDF version of that form. We do have a lot to learn in the next 50 or 60 so minutes, so I sort of will be going at quite a decent pace. If you do have any questions though throughout the session, we do have Prakash, who is another trainer within the Damstra team, who'll be there answering questions via chat. I will also stop periodically throughout the session to ask if you've got any questions, and we can have a look at those questions in the chat window. For the recording, for the video, I will be turning my camera off just so I can help save some bandwidth for the recording, but we might get stuck into it. Okay, I'll just turn my camera off. We'll get into it. So yeah, so today, as I said, we're going to learn how to create a template in Digital Forms. So there are actually 3 steps when it comes to creating a template in Digital Forms. So the first step is that you need to actually create the template. Your second step is you need to sync that template to the PDF version so that the answers that are inputted into Digital Forms actually appear on that PDF. And then our last step is we then need to publish the template and add it to a project so people can actually start using that template. So we're going to go through all of those 3 steps today. Okay, so let's start off with our first step, which is creating a template. So what we're going to do with creating a template is you can do this one of 2 ways. I can create my template just from scratch without actually having a Word document, or I can use my Word document to guide me on how I'd actually like my digital form to look like. That's the option we're going with today. Is I'm going to be using a Word version of my form, and pretty much all I do is replicate those fields in Digital Forms. Okay, so let's have a look at how we do that. So Word version. Okay, so here is my Word version of my form, and here is my Digital Forms screen. So to create a new form, what I need to do is come up into the admin section, and then once I click admin, you'll see I have an option for templates, and I'll click on templates. Now, when I click on templates, this will actually give me a list of all of the existing templates in the system. What I want to do is I want to create a new template. So I'm just going to click on the green Create Template button on the right-hand side here. And you'll see that I have an option of either creating a form or an action. So a form is a full form that people fill in. An action, you create, an action is like a mini form where you create an action when you need to have something done. So today we're just going to create a full form. So I'm going to click form. But if I wanted to create an actions, I just would obviously click action, and the process is very, very similar. So going to click on form. And now this will bring up for us a blank draft template. So just having a really quick overview of the editor where we create our forms. Down the side here is where we add in our either section type. So when you create a form, you can create the form with the standard section. So here is an example of a standard section. Here is a standard section is where you get users to fill in information. You can also add in an approval section into a form. So an approval section allows you to select a list of approvers within your business, and when a form is being filled in, you can request that the form be sent off to an approver to get approvals. So you can get a digital signature on that form. The approver can either approve or decline the request from that particular form. And then down here, we've got all our different control types. So our control types control how the user actually enters information into the system. You can have a look. We've got, here's about 15 different control types. They're all pretty self-explanatory when you have a look at them. You've got text fields, text areas. The difference between these two is a text field allows you just one line of information, whereas a text area gives you multiple lines of information. You have number, again, number, pretty self-explanatory, but what the system can allow you to do is if you do use the control type for number, you can actually program mathematical formulas into your form. So they're great in being able to work out risk assessments and that type of thing. Other ones that I might point out to you, which are a little bit different, is your read-only text. This is where you'd use this control type to enter in instructions, that type of thing. You've got formulas, so you can do really basic formulas where you ask the system to just fill information in from one field into another field. It'll just copy that information for you. Or you can get into some really advanced formulas within a form as well. So yeah, so each of your control types are pretty self-explanatory, but what we'll do is as we're creating the form, we're going to go in and use a few of these and I'll show you how to apply them to a form. So coming over into the middle section of the form, you'll see we've got a section where we can enter in our name. So that's the name of our form. So today I'm just going to call this form a daily supervisor's diary. What's today's date? Let me name it today so I can differentiate it. Excellent. So here we name the form. Now this is the name that you were entering here will be the name that the user will see when they're selecting the form, when they're filling a form out. So do ensure you make your names quite user-friendly for your participants. And over here in the right-hand corner, you'll see we've got a couple of functions. We've got advanced settings. So if we click on advanced settings, here is where we control whether we'd like a PDF output, whether we'd like to attach images or not to the form. So got these are your settings for the overall form. You'll see against each of these different control types that you do have settings which are relevant just to that control type as well. Now coming down into the body of our form, this is where we actually create our form. Now when you create a new form from scratch, the form will come with 6 control types already allocated to that form. Now these 6 control types are they're not mandatory, they're not all mandatory in a form, but they all have to be included in the form. I can't unfortunately delete any of these control types or any of these fields. Okay, so they come with 6. I might be happy to use all of these 6. All of these 6 fields that I have here may be something that I want to use on my form. Some of them I may not want to use. If you don't want to use them, we do have a little trick where we go and hide those fields on the form, and I'll show you how to do that when we create this form. Again, just having a read of these fields, I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory. There's just a couple that I do want to explain to you. The first one that I want to explain to you is the sequence number. Now you'll see sequence number has a little asterisk next to it, which tells me that this field is a compulsory field. This field needs to be filled in when a user creates a form or fills in a form. The deal though with this sequence number is that Damstra forms or digital forms auto fills this field for us. Okay, so a user doesn't actually need to fill it in. The system will automatically allocate a sequence number to the form. Now what a sequence number is, let me just jump to my PowerPoint and I'll explain to you what a sequence number is. Digital forms uses a sequence number to help differentiate a form when you're filling in multiple of that form. So you'll see here, I've got a few vehicle assessments that have been filled in. And this number here at the end of the name of each of the forms is actually a sequence number. Okay, so Digital Forms allocates this number, and it's what Digital Forms uses to be able to differentiate one form from the other. Okay. So sequence number compulsory, but our users don't actually need to fill that in. Okay. The other field that I want to sort of explain to you is this WBS item. So WBS refers to work breakdown structure, which is a term used within project management. Some businesses use work breakdown structures to help manage their projects. Most businesses, though, that I've come across don't actually use this field. So again, this field, it's not a compulsory field. You'll see that there's no asterisk next to it. So we don't actually need to fill this field in. Unfortunately, though, we can't delete this field from the system. We do need to leave it in there. So what we're going to do is, again, just hide this field so users don't see it. But I'll show you my little trick that I use to hide that field. Okay, but the rest of the fields, they're pretty obvious. Project is the name of the project that form is being created in Digital Forms. Short description is just a text field, like a text field here where you can put information. Whatever you put on this field, though, will appear when you have a look at your register in Digital Forms. That information will actually appear underneath the name of the form. And you've got owned by, so the owned by field will default to the user that is actually creating the form. You can change that, but the system will default to that user, and then date raised will default to the date that the user is actually creating the form. So what I do when I'm creating a new form, I'll see I've got my 6 fields that I can't remove from Digital Forms. So I will see if I can use them. So which of these 6 fields can I use on the form that I'm creating? And the ones that I don't want to use are the ones that I'm going to hide. So what I'm going to do is have a look over here at my form, my Word form, and have a look at what fields I can use. So the fields that I can use, so supervisor probably would be my owned by. So it'd probably be the person who was actually filling the form in, would probably be my user. It's usually your user. So what I want to do is I want to make my digital form match my Word form as much as possible. So I'm going to what I can do, wherever you see a little pencil means I can edit the information in that particular field. So I'm just going to go in here and change it from owned by to supervisor. Okay, just so I can match my form. I'm going to do the same with date. Here it just has date. Project stays the same. And then my short description, I've got a field up here for job number. I'm not really going to use short description for anything else. So I'm going to change that to job number. Excellent. So what I've done here is I have repurposed the 4 of the 6 fields to match my form. Now what I'm going to do next is I want to hide the 2 fields that people don't need to fill in. So the sequence number, don't need to fill that in, and our WBS, we don't need to fill that in. So what I'm going to do to hide them is I'm going to create a new section. So all of these 6 fields currently sit under this section where I've just got it named header. I'm actually going to change the name of this section to diary details. Excellent. And then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add a new section. Now, because I want to hide this information from users and I don't really want them to fill them in, I'm just going to create a section called Office Use Only. So what will happen is it'll be named Office Use Only, which will deter users from going in and filling in that section. And then anyone in the office, just ignore this section. You don't need to worry about the fields in here. We're just putting it in there so that we can move these fields out of the way so people don't fill them in. So what I'm going to do is I want to move the sequence number down into this section. So to do that, all I do is put my cursor over the 6 dots and I'll get a little hand, and then I just drag that down. Okay, so now I've popped this into the office use only section. Now, what I'm also going to do to hide this section, to stop people from wanting to fill these fields in when they look at their form, is if I click on the cog for, or the settings icon for this section, you'll see that I have an option to collapse when created. So what that means is if I switch that on, when a user uses the form, the actual fields in that form won't be visible to the user. If they click on the little drop down arrow, they will become available, but hopefully when they see your office use only, they won't be tempted to actually expand that field to fill in those forms, fill in those fields. Okay, now what I might also like to do is maybe just put my fields in my digital form in the same order as they appear on my Word form, just so I want to just try to keep things as similar as I possibly can. So to do that's nice and easy, I'm just going to pop my cursor over the 6 dots again, and you can just easily reorder all of your fields so that they appear in the same order on the form. Okay, we've finished our first section of our form. So far, nice and easy, I hope. So the next thing we're going to have a look at is now filling in our weather report, or creating a section for our weather report. So to do that, we want to create a new section. So I've got 2 ways of doing that. I can either click on standard section up the top here and drag it down, or you'll see I've got a button for new section here. So I'm just going to click on new section. And then I want to rename this section weather. Just going to go in here in that weather report. Beautiful. Okay. So you'll see here that I've got some instructions that go along with my weather report. So it's telling me that I want to write a brief description of the weather. Is it fine, raining, wind conditions, what's the temperature, etc. So to do that, I want to add in some instructions so my users know what to do. So to add instructions, we'll use the read-only text. So I'm going to come over to my control types. I'm going to click on my read-only text, and then I'm going to drag it into my weather section. Now, whatever wording appears in my template is what's going to appear on the form when the user fills the form in. So obviously don't want this to say read-only because that won't be very nice. So what I'm going to do is just click on here, and then I can change instructions. And what I want to do is pop these instructions. I'm just going to cheat a little bit and copy and paste, make life a bit easier for myself. So I'll copy the instructions. I'll click on the field, which then opens up my settings for this particular control type. And here I can pop in my instruction. And then instead of saying write, I'm just going to pop in select. Okay, so I'm going to pop in select. I do have an option for some advanced settings here. Can I attach images if I wanted to? And I've got my merge fields, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I'm going to close that. So I now have my instructions in here. So the next thing I now want to do is enter in a control type, which is going to allow my users to put in their answer. So the control type that I'm going to use for this is, you'll see that we've got a little bit of a list going on here. So is my weather fine? Is it raining? Is it windy? Now, the whole purpose of digital forms is to make life easier for our users. And a great way of making life easier for our users is by adding in lists where our users can select options from that list. So because we do have a little bit of a list going here, I'm going to use the control type of list. So I'm going to drag that in and drag that under. And then obviously I don't want list written there, so I'm just going to pop in here conditions. Okay. Now, when it comes to our list, where do we get the information for our list from? Now, how digital forms works is we've got an option for 3 different types of lists we can use. We could create a custom list. So a custom list would be exclusive to this form only. Very easy to create. I just ensure my list type here is set to custom list, and then I can add in my each of my weather conditions as I go. Now that's great, but lists, when you're within a business, usually when you create a list, you'd like it to be used on more than one form. So what we also have in the system, or Digital Forms has, is we've got the option of an organisation list or a project list. So the difference between these two lists is an organisation list allows you to attach your list to every single form in every single project that you have. So it's when you create an organisation list, it's created across your organisation. You can then you can also create a project list, which is exclusive to a particular project. So project lists are great for their site inductee lists. So each of your different projects or each of your different work sites would have specific inductees or workers at each site. So you would want that list to be exclusive to that project. With weather though, weather is something that you would be wanting to use across the whole business. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to select an organisation list. Now there is, Digital Forms does come with a preloaded list for weather. So if you click on the drop down for organisation lists, you'll scroll through here, it will be access to all of the different lists that are available in the system. You can definitely create your own organisation lists in the system as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on weather. Now another little thing that I'm going to do is up the top here, you'll see we've got the option to multi-select. So the system will default to multi-select being switched to no, which means my user can only select one option from my list. Now, when it comes to weather, we're probably going to want to allow our users to put a combination of weather conditions in. So I'm just going to select, to turn multi-select on. So now my users can add or select multiple options from the list. It's going to come down to my advanced settings as well and have a look at the options that I have for this particular control type. So the option that I have here is do I want to make this field mandatory or not? Yeah, I do. I don't want my users to skip past this field. So I'm going to turn mandatory on. So my users will now need to fill this in. You will see once I've turned mandatory on that I now have a little asterisk against this control type. Okay, we're now finished with that one. So we're going to close that. So yeah, we've finished this section. So I've popped our weather report in there. We've given instructions, select a brief description of weather, and then we've popped in our organisation list. So here you can see different weather conditions. With your organisation list as well, you can have the list set up so that users can add different items to that list on the go, or you can have that switched off so you lock the list so they can't add. That's completely up to you and how you want to manage that particular list that you've created. So you can do either or. Okay, let's move into our next section. So our next section of our form is our progress section. So I'm going to create a new section. I'm going to change this to progress. There. And then I've got some instructions, so task completed. So again, I'm going to bring my read only across to change that to instructions. Then again, I'm going to copy and paste. Excellent. So I've got my instructions. Now for this next section, having a look at the answer that I'd want, when I'm creating a form and I try to decide which control type I want to use, I have a look at what the answer is going to be, and that will help me determine which is the best control type to use. So here with progress, progress, tasks completed for the day, progress against the program. I potentially could use a list here, but my list would need to be pretty involved. I'd need to really understand absolutely every type of progress that could happen on the job. So instead of that, I'm going to use a text area and leave that as free format for my users to fill in. Okay, so I'm just going to come in here and pop in progress. Beautiful. So I now have a free format text area for my users to fill in. Okay, we're getting there. It's not taking long, is it? Okay, let's move down to our next section. So our next section is safety users. So I'm going to click on new, or safety issues, sorry. I'm going to click on new. I'm going to change this to safety issues. Okay, so in my safety issues, you'll see that we've got two types of questions in my safety issues. So I'm going to use two different control types here. So my first one is, were there any, were there any safety issues? So my answer here would probably be a yes or a no. Yes, there were. No, there weren't. So let's use a question for this one. So I'm going to drag my little question across. Now, when it comes to filling in questions, you'll see that I've got my field over here where I've been putting instructions in progress. So you would think I'm going to pop my question in here, but unfortunately, I don't have enough space to write my question in this particular field here. Where I'm going to add my question is here where it says add question. So let me just click on that and let's get our question and type it in here. Question in. Now, when it comes to the answer for your questions, the system's quite flexible and you can configure it to do quite a bit. So the system will default to a yes or no answer, but what you can do is I can also add in a third answer, a third option, so yes, no, or not applicable. Or I've got multiple choice where I can add up to 5 different answers to my question. What I can also do with any of these fields is, let's say I was using this for a competency check. So are my users competent or not competent? I can actually type over the top of and that turns into free format for you to customize that field. I'm just going to leave this as yes or no. Now just going to have a look at our advanced settings for our questions to see what other options we've got here. So when I click on advanced settings, because when our user fills this in, they're actually making a selection of yes or no, we can also attach a child form to this particular field. So where child forms come in really handy is, for our question here is, did we have any safety issues? Let's say we wanted to attach a child form if our user answered yes, and off that form we wanted it to link to a corrective action so that we could have whatever issue the user came across, we could have a corrective action be triggered off so that we could get that issue rectified. So these fields here allow us to do that. So here I can either choose to have another form as my form that's triggered, or I can have an action as my form that's triggered. So I'm going to just assign an action. And then what will happen is I just need to select the template that I would like to be triggered. So I'm just going to do a corrective action for this, and then I decide when I'd like that corrective action to be triggered. So I'd like when the user answers yes or when they answer no. So I'm just going to say yes here. I'd like it to trigger when they say yes. I can also format this a little bit as well if I wanted to. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Now, the last thing that I want to do is on the side here, you'll see we've got question, and then up the top we've got question. See how we've got numbers 1 and 2, so I'm just going to change that to 1 just to help differentiate my questions from each other. Okay, so were there any safety issues? And then my next one is list the hazards. So again, I'm going to just pop in a text area. I think that's our best option, and I'm just going to change that to, actually I want to pop in some instructions, but I'll adjust this first. So hazards, and then I'm going to pop a text in here. And then pop that in. Beautiful. Excellent. So now I've got my questions. Actually, I don't want to pop you to 2. I want to make it 2. So my safety issue, here's my question 1. Were there any safety issues? Number 2, list all hazards. And here is where I would list all of my hazards. Okay. Now, we pretty much would repeat that process for the rest of these fields. So I'm going to skip past those fields and just come down to my last section here, which is the signature section. So to create my signature section, I'm going to click Add New Section, and then I'm going to call this the supervisor's signature. Excellent. So with our supervisor's signature, here we need to enter in a field for raised by. Now, generally, the person who's raising this is probably the supervisor who created this, this form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit, or I'm going to make life a bit easier for my user. So I'm going to use a formula control type. And I'm going to change this to raised by. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to program the form to enter the name in here based on the name that is entered into the supervisor. So when the supervisor creates this form, their name is going to automatically appear here. I'm then going to make the form, program the form so that that name just automatically appears here and the user doesn't need to fill their name in twice. Okay, so how I do that is I'm just going to click on the settings for this particular control type, and I'm going to turn on formula references. So when I turn on formula references, you'll see that references for each of the different control types appears. So all I need to do to make this field read this information is enter the reference for that particular control type. So I'm just going to pop in here TOP exclamation mark A. Okay, so what will now happen is when a user fills the form in and their name drops into this field, it's going to automatically appear in this field. Now that is your most basic way of using formulas. Formulas though, what I've seen the configuration team do with formulas is pretty amazing. It's a little bit above my knowledge of the system, but the formulas you can do some really amazing thing with formulas, but that, as I said, your most basic one. Okay, so we've popped our raised by in here. We've got our date signed, so let's use our date field. I probably could steal the date from up here as well, but I just want to use a date, look the date control in here so we can see what it looks like. So our date signed, and then we've got our supervisor's signature. So we've got our signature box, which we can pop down here. Rid of that. Excellent. Okay, we are nearly finished. We're nearly finished. The last thing that I want to do, so if I have a look at my form in whole, is I'll see that I've got my office use only sort of stuck in the middle of my form. I just want to get that out of the way for my users. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag that down to the bottom of my form so it's sort of hidden away. Okay, so once you are happy with your form, you've filled in all of your sections, what we're going to do is we're going to save that. I'm going to click save. Okay, so I've done step 1 of our process. So we have created our template. It's quite easy, quite easy. So the next step that we need to do when we are creating our template is we want to sync it to the PDF version. Now, I want to make this clear. If you don't want any PDF versions of your forms, you don't need to do this step. Okay, you only need to do this step if you actually want to produce a PDF version of the form. Okay, so let's have a look at how we do this. We are going to use, I don't know if anyone here remembers old school mail merge, but to get the answers from when a user puts an answer into this field and to get that answer to appear on this Word doc, we're going to use old school mail merge. Yeah, it's going back into my early days. So let's have a look at how we do that. So I'm just going to make my Word document just a little bit bigger, easier to see. Okay, so to be able to use our mail merge function, you do need to ensure you've got the APE mobile add-in on your computer. Okay, so you'll be able to access that add-in from our website. Be able to get it from there. And once you've been able to download that, how you access it is when you open up Word, if you click on the insert, so if I could go back to home. If I click on insert, you'll see over here in the top right-hand corner, I've got a templates field option. And when I click on that, what will happen is a little side window will open up for me. Now, when you log in, you'll need to log in so that you can sync Word with your server. So when you log in, you'll be asked to put in your digital form server name, your username for digital forms, which is usually your email address, and then your password for digital forms. So once you've done that, you'll log in and then you'll get a little drop down, which will actually have a list of all of the forms that are available in your server. So what we want to do is find the form that we just created. So the form that we just created is, all right, where's today's date? Where have you gone? Oh, what did I call it? Did I save it or maybe I didn't save it? I gotta save it first. There we go. Let's have a look now. What did I call you? Oh, Daily Supervisor. Sorry, where are you going? Okay, not coming up. I'll just use this one for today. Not sure what's going on there. Okay, so once we're into our tree, so I like to call this our merge tree. So once we're into our merge tree for our form, what we need to do is we need to use the mail merge function to sync our fields to our form. So how we do that, when I first learned how to do this, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be so difficult. It really isn't. It's ridiculously easy. Okay, very, very easy. So how we do this, if you notice, the names that appear in our tree all match the names of the fields on our form. And all we do is we place our cursor on the form where we want the information to appear. We then find the field on our form and we double click that field. And when we do that, a little mail merge field will appear on our form. And all I do is continue that throughout the form. So here I've got supervisor. So supervisor, I have date. I double click on date, project. With project, if you ever see a field which has a little grey arrow, what that's telling me is that I've got a few more fields that I can sync in. So if I click on that little grey field, you'll see here that under the main heading of project, I have the project name, project number, address and description. So all of this information is loaded into the system when you create a project from scratch. So here I just want to pop the project name. So I'm going to double click on project and I'm going to find job number. And I just continue that throughout the form. So what I just want to have a look at here is if I tab down, wherever I pop my cursor is where my information is going to print on my form. Okay, so you've got to really think about where you place your form or your cursor when you're doing this mail merge function. So if I were to put my mail merge right here and click conditions here, what would happen is the list of my conditions would appear directly after my instructions. And that might just be a little bit difficult to read. So when you're doing the mail merge, always ensure you put the cursor exactly where you would like your answer to appear. Okay, so exactly where you would like your answer to appear. So I'm just going to come down to our bottom section here and pop in our last little section. So let's go raised by, date signed, signature. Ooh, there we go. Awesome. Now, once you've finished all of your merge, what we then need to do is save this form. So I'm just going to save you, just give you a name. So what's today's date? Oh, you can't put them. So let's save that. Where did you save? I save stuff and never remember where I actually saved it. Let's go desktop. Excellent. Okay. So once I have saved that in, I can now go in and sync my form to my template. Just go in and grab my template. Beautiful. Okay, so we have synced our form. We've said in Word, this is where I would like my information from my digital form to appear. So what I'm now going to do is actually attach my PDF to my digital form. So how I do that is I click on the PDF button up here in the top right-hand corner, and you'll see that I've got some instructions. So here it says step 1, build and save your template. We just did that. Step 2, map your fields, was what we just did in Word. And then our third one here is we would like to upload our file. What I'm going to do is choose a file. To desktop. And this is our form here. I'm going to upload that. And once I'm happy with that, I'll just make it a little bit bigger. Once I'm happy with that, I'll click save. That is now saving my PDF version to the form. What I want to do, just to make sure everything's gone okay, before I publish this and then make it available in a project for people to use, is I just want to preview it. So to preview it, I'm just going to click on preview. And what will happen is the system will create a dummy form for me and it'll pop in some dummy information. Now, the dummy information that it's going to enter in is the original name of the control type that we used. So for supervisor, remember we used owned, the control type of owned by, and then we had project, short description. We named this one conditions. So everything that we did, we've got date signed, so it's pulling up, raised by, and it just doesn't give us a dummy signature. But here we can go in and just have a look and make sure that all of the fields are appearing exactly where we would like them to appear before we actually publish our form. Okay, guys, we just synced the template to the PDF version. So we've done step 2 of our process. We're going to now look at step 3 of the process, which is publish the template and add it to a project. So what we do in this step is we need to publish. So after we've saved our form, we'll be brought to the details page, and you'll see we've got a big green button here. So a big green button, we press to publish. And what this is now doing is making our form available for users to use. So I've now said, yes, I'd like people to use this form. What I now need to do, though, is make the form available in a project. Okay, so one of the great things about digital forms is that you can customize who uses what form, and how you do that is by releasing it into a project. Now, there's 2 ways to release a form into a project. So one of those ways is by making your form a default template. Now, when you make your form a default template, you are telling the system that you would like this form to be available automatically whenever a new project is created. So whenever a new project is created, I just want that form to just automatically be on the list of forms that people use. Or that's one way of doing it. Or the other way that you can release forms is I can release a form just to a specific project. So I'm going to show you how to do both of those ways today. So how we make it a default, or how we release it just to a specific project. So to release a form as a default, what we do is we go up into the admin section, and you'll see we've got an option for default templates. So when I click on default templates, what will happen is I will get a screen which shows gives me access to each of the different user types. So when you do create a default template, you can have that default template specified to a specific user type. Okay, we're just going to go with super users. They tend to be our most common users. So if you click on details for super users, what will happen is a list of all of the default forms that are currently set up in your organisation will appear. So these are all of your default templates. Now, how we make that form available as a default, because you'll see that our daily supervisor's diary that we just created isn't on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click edit, and when we click edit, this will actually bring up all of the default, all of the templates that are created in your system. Okay, so these are all of the forms. And so to make something a default, so to make it available to absolutely every project that you create, what you do is you click on this, click the little checkbox for your form and click save. And then every time a new project is created, that form will automatically appear in that folder, in that project. Okay, we're not going to say that it's a default, just because I want to show you how to add it just to a project. Okay, so that's how we create a default. What I do suggest to you, though, is as a business with your default templates to go through and have a look at all of the forms that are set as defaults, and just manage this list. And if there's any forms on here that don't relate to your business, you can take them off, just untick them, because each time you do create a project, that form will become available. So it just helps your users so that you're trying to filter out forms that are unapplicable to their part of the business. Okay, let's cancel out of that. Now let's have a look at how we add a form to a specific project. So to add a form to a specific project, you do have to have that project open. So I'll just open my example project. And then down the bottom of your example of your project, you'll see that you've got an option for project templates. So if I click on project templates, I'll get my little window again that gives me access to each of the different user types. So I'm just going to click on super user. And then when I have a look at super user, it's going to give me a list of all of the forms that are currently available for this particular project. Okay, so you'll see that my daily supervisor's diary is not on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit my list, which is then my form, and then I just click the one that I want to add it to my project, and then I click save. So I've now added this form to my project. Okay, so it's now on my list, which means any users that are on this project will have access to that particular form. So let's have a look at what it looks like. Let's look at what we just created. So I'm going to click on forms. I'm going to click create. Here's the form that I just created. And here's the form we just created. Okay, so you can see here my name's automatically appeared, today's date. I've got a field where I can enter in my job number. I've got my weather conditions here that I can pop in. I've got the rest of my fields. So here, see the raised by has red from my name up here. Got a calendar where I can select, and then my signature. And then to save that to my project, I just, validation error. Oh, I didn't answer this question. We'll say no errors. Okay. Did you see that, guys? Because I made that field compulsory, it didn't let me save it until I filled it in. I've now created my form. And if I want to have a look at my form, here's my PDF version. And that is how you create, very fast, overview of how you create a digital form in Digital Forms. Okay, everyone, the floor is yours. Do you have any questions on any of that? I see Prakash has been answering the chat. Did anyone have any specific function of the system that you wanted me to answer specific questions on? No? Awesome. Okay, if nobody's got any questions, then we might wrap up. So everybody, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today to learn how to create a digital form. Oh, we do have a question. Yay. Can form data tables be populated from Damstra safety? I might get Andrew, are you on the call? I saw you on the call. Andrew, are you able to answer that particular question? Okay, our question was, can form data, hi, yes, you are there, excellent, Andrew. So in regards to the tables from Damstra safety, can they be populated? I don't know if I how to take you off mute, Andrew. Might have to answer in chat. I think Andrew's formulating his answer. Okay, yeah, so not yet, but we're working on it, on the integration. Yes, we are. So I think we're looking next quarter for that to happen. Was that correct, Andrew? That was going to happen next financial quarter. Yeah, excellent. Okay, any other questions? Yes, so Andrew, Stuart said yes, that will be happening in the next quarter. Looking forward to that. Lots to learn. Excellent. Any other questions? No? Okay, everyone, thank you again so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot from that. As I said, this will be recorded, so we will get the recording out to you, and you can refer back to it if you need any help creating your own form. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.